5. And we will begin tonight's work session with public comment on non-agenda item. Is there any public comment on non-agenda item? Okay, seeing none, we will move into what?
I apologize. I had received an email earlier today saying that Joe Carroll Rapp would like to give public comment on non-agenda related items. She's online.
Well, I won't say anything if she does. Good evening, Joe Carroll. Can you hear us? Oops.
She's in the room and it appears
she's in the room
muted.
And I don't see it as muted. Joe Carroll?
I don't know what else we could do.
I don't either. We'll just move on for right now.
Email us.
Do what?
Madam Mayor, I know what she wanted to tell us about. I might be able to convey it.
Okay.
Appropriate?
Yes.
She wanted to let us know that that Head Start will run out of funding soon because of cuts. And that so that's going to affect a lot of families with disabilities, like some large percentage of the kids in Head Start and or developmental preschool. So Joe Carroll would have said it more eloquently, but that's what she wanted to alert people to, that they are going to be running out of funds.
And you said cuts. Is this related to cuts or to the shutdown? Oh, please, Vice Mayor.
So this is related to the federal shutdown.
Those things.
Yes.
Okay.
Welcome, Joe Carroll. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. This is not my thing with the technical stuff.
Well, we're just so happy to have you here.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to make a short, and it will be short, if not sweet, community impact statement. And I think I could hear Erin, she began, and the information is that I'm currently the chairman of the Laramie Child Development Corporation, better known as Laramie Head Start. Our grant will expire on October 31st. The community impact statement, as I see it now, is that 55 children will no longer be receive 2 meals a day and full day preschool services. Secondly, 16 children that are on individual education plans will have a major impact on developmental preschool, as by law, they are required to provide all therapy services in an inclusionary setting. Next is there are 21 full and part-time employees of Head Start who will be dismissed. A lot of them are primary breadwinners for their family. And secondly, under the parental impact is that many of the parents' ability to work will be impacted without the preschool childcare / services. And finally, we are the primary funders for Lincoln Community Center, providing 80% of their budget. Is there any questions?
Vice Mayor.
I don't have a question, but I just want to, I don't have a question, but a comment if no one else has a question.
We'll take questions or comments, please.
Joe Carroll, thank you so much. I'm not sure if this is 100% appropriate, but I had been in contact with someone regarding your situation, and I invite you to reach out to me at the Wyoming Community Foundation or Wyoming Women's Foundation, and we have started discussions to see if there's a way that we can support Head Start in the community.
This community has already reached out. I appreciate you, and I certainly appreciate Jamie Stein and other people, but the amount of money that's involved is considerable. However, we're not going to pass that up. We will definitely reach out to any and all. Thank you so much.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Bowling.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Joe Carroll. While this is devastating, I just want to mention that even just today, there's a group of Westside residents that are organizing to begin a new food pantry located at the Lincoln Center in response to this news. So while I don't have any solutions or anything to say beyond that, I just thought it was worth mentioning.
Thank you.
We live in a great community.
And there are a lot of activities and actions going on right now to mobilize. So keep your eyes open and be aware that people are mobilizing in response to this so we can support the members of our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe Carroll. We really appreciate your coming tonight.
Thank you all.
And next, we'll go on to our first work session, and that is the 3rd Street Beautification Project. And Mr. Fieser.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, pleasure to be here tonight to go over this project. I hate that it comes on the heels of bad news, right? When we've got such good things going on, but I'm excited to see how the city can potentially get involved and help in those other situations. It's exciting to come to you at this point after we've had just so much recent success related to 3rd Street beautification. Not only has YDOT completed what is a fantastic upgrade of our 3rd Street corridor from I-80 to Reynolds, but recently, as you know, and Brooks reported, city staff replaced the pedestrian lighting along that way. Parks crews went in and removed some of the decrepit old planters that might have been in there that you've seen. We're still working on some of the empty sign pole removal and replacement and looking at the sign program and continuing on down that project. In the future, you'll even see contract amendment for BHA, the design firm, to continue to help us with improvements that we're planning to do along the corridor. But tonight, as you may remember, a while back, we approved an agreement between Tom Drugan and Laura Haddad for art concepts in the 3rd Street corridor. The vision behind this was that they would help us develop gateway and placemaking artwork in the 3rd Street corridor as we work forward with that. We're currently in phase 1, which is the research document review site visit, and we're here to provide the artist information from the stakeholders and Laramie community to move on to phase 2, which is to develop the thematic ideas. They've been in since yesterday. Actually, I think they flew in Sunday. Spent some time, got up here Monday, have been doing lots of visits with the Planning Commission, YDOT, art tours. They hosted a community reception at the Art Museum last night. They spent an hour with me today, which really was quite therapeutic. I was on my couch with my knees out and going over all the stuff that I wanted to see that the artwork was going to provide for me personally, therapeutically. But they're a fantastic crew. To give you an idea, as we went through this process, and I do say it lightheartedly, but I think we looked at 100,000 different artists that submitted to be part of this project. It was part of a national acquisition that was led by LPAC and was really a fun process to be part of. And all along from the very beginning, I thought Laura and Tom's artwork really spoke to me about what they do and how they get involved in the community and provide artwork that really probably creates that statement that we're looking for. And I'm really proud to have them be part of this team. So without any further discussion and introduction to Laura and Tom, I'm going to bring them up, let you give their presentation, and hope that this is a time for council to interact with them about concepts, ideas, and help guide and direct what we might see as artwork as it moves forward into the future. Thank you.
Thank you. And good evening, Tom and Laura. Welcome.
Oh, hello, everyone. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council. Appreciate you having us here tonight. So we're gonna give you a quick kind of introduction to ourselves and our work and a little bit about our process. I think this will help kind of illuminate kind of how we work and how we, as Todd mentioned, how we derive our inspirations from a community, a place, a site, and we'll go a little more into detail that. But so Laura and I have been collaborating for over 20 years now, doing pretty much exclusively public art. And we're based in Seattle, Washington. This is our first time in Laramie. So as Todd mentioned, we've been kind of trying to absorb as much as we can, and have really had a fantastic time so far. And so with that, I'll let Laura kind of kick off our presentation here.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm going to just go through initially just kind of a quick medley of projects and talk about the way we work, and then focus on a couple projects. And then Tom will talk about the research and inspiration we found so far here in Laramie. Okay, I already forgot how to do this. Oh, here we go. Okay, so the main focus of our practice is placemaking through large-scale iconic artworks that often become identifiers for the places where they're located. We incorporate lighting into our work whenever we can to generate additional conceptual meaning and effects. We are always striving to create art experiences that have a bit of magic in them to capture the public's imagination and provide new understandings of place. The concepts we form often layer together several inspirations and ideas about a site that we learn from these processes of research and community engagement. The inspirations can be cultural, social, natural, functional, scientific, all depending on the site. So then we filter this inspiration through our own aesthetic lens of color and form and light, and convey the concepts through visual storytelling, where we're trying to reveal things that are often invisible about a place. So we work spatially, sometimes using sculptural forms to compose immersive places for people to gather. The art can be an unexpected intervention, or it can do unexpected things in certain weather conditions. When possible, we do activate the forms and materials with natural phenomena, such as sunlight, solar alignments, plants, wildlife, wind, which we hear is very prevalent here in Laramie, and water, so that the art can be a barometer of its environment. So in many ways, our work is experimental. We build a lot of prototypes. No two pieces are alike. And the sculptures are often setting up conditions and constants on which nature can enact different reactions. But layered into all of them is a sense of humanity, storytelling, and a lens, ideally into universal realms. So the first piece that we wanted to dive a little deeper into is actually, I think the two pieces the first piece is in Denver at the animal shelter. So this piece obviously is a big iconic representational sculpture of a pet, making a symbol of the function of the place. So this piece is 25 feet tall on a podium, so it's visible from I-25. So it acts as kind of a thing that beckons you to come to the shelter. The sculpture is also covered in 90,000 stainless steel pet tags. So when you get up closer, you see that it has this more textured feeling. The tags move in the wind, they reflect sunlight. The podium creates a little photo op, so people will come out with their dogs and take pictures. sculptures. So it really does become an icon of its place. We chose the pet tag as the material because it's a symbol of adoption and caring, and we wanted to convey this sense of stewardship for animals, but also the environment that the sculpture is located in. When we came out for the site visit, we were, loved all the pets, of course, but we also became interested in the South Platte River, which a community group was working to rehabilitate with native plants. We also loved the way the sunlight was reflecting off the water, so the pet tags did a similar thing in the sunlight, so they also become a marker of the river. So they reflect the environment, they reflect people and pets, and become kind of changing depending on the weather. So we work typically with fabricators to build the artwork. So this piece was built at a shop in Denver. First, we built a steel frame, so we have everything engineered. We wrapped it in stainless steel mesh, and then some very industrious art students spent weeks attaching all the pet tags. We often have to think about how we're going to get the artwork to the site, so usually it can't come in one piece. So here we broke the sculpture into two halves. This was a one-day installation because it just bolted down onto the foundation. We really love it when the art is, welcomes people to interact with it in different ways, petting the tags and sitting on the dog, and being, I think making people feel comfortable with the art. This sculpture is illuminated at night with lights that are, the poles are out of the picture here, but they're lights that cast onto it, and they go through sunset colors at night. There's a second part of the sculpture, which is inside the lobby of the animal shelter. So here we have a collar that is sized to fit the big dog, and hanging from it are chains that might be used for a pet leash. As people adopt pets or their pets pass on, they're invited to engrave a tag with the name of their pet and the date of the birth or the adoption or the death. So it becomes kind of a community collar that is growing over time. The engravings on the collar are the plants that are planted around Sunspot, the large sculpture, which are native plants. And then this is reflected in this third element, this very small element along the trail that has the restoration going on, where we're using pet tags marked with the names of native plants. So kind of making a correlation between stewardship of pets and stewardship of the environment. So the second piece I wanted to talk about is our most recent installation. This is an abstract sculpture in Philadelphia on the Delaware River. This is our tallest sculpture to date. It's 60 feet tall, or 10 fathoms. This sculpture is creating a beacon that draws people down to the river, so very similar to Sunspot in that way. But it is marking the depth of the river through the height of the sculpture. So the sculpture is broken into sections that are 2 fathoms each, or 12 feet. So the upper cable portion is 8 fathoms, or 48 feet, which is the deepest part of the river. So what we're doing here, this is very tiny, but the map in the upper left with the circle is the portion of the river adjacent to the sculpture that we're marking the depth of. And we're using a device called lead lines, which is a historic way of marking the depth of the river, or gauging the depth of the river, where people would throw these lines into the water, the lead would sink to the bottom, and the line would be marked in increments of fathoms, and so you could gauge the depth of the water. So each of the cables in the sculpture is a real actual scale depth of the river. So the sculpture is located in a new multi-use, primarily apartment and housing development with retail and restaurants in the base. So it becomes kind of a center point, and we've used polycarbonate discs attached to the cables that they are kind of indicating the water. They reflect light and then transmit light when they're backlit, and they're very kind of changing depending on the weather. And then at the base, our sounding weights are reflective steel pieces. And then these cables are held between two circular frames with these spiraling ribs that are give it kind of a kind of Fibonacci curve aspect to it, which ties to the pine cones that are reference to the pine trees that were previously made into lumber at the site. So we kind of go deep into the research and then have these little Easter eggs of information. And then the pipes at the base of the sculpture have etchings on them that reference nautical aspects of navigating the river. One of them is the map that has the depths on it that are referenced in the cables above. So there's a plaque that describes all this so people can kind of put the pieces together. Some of the pipes are etched with phases of the moon and tidal charts and the lead lines. So again, like a way to kind of map it all together and put together the story. So the hope is that the big beacon draws you there, you get closer and you explore the etchings, and then when you're under the sculpture, you look up and you have this kind of other view where you look up into the oculus and you see all the spiraling pieces that are holding the cables together. And then this piece is illuminated at night with fixtures that are in the upper frame. So they go through a 75-minute looping program where the colors go through all types of like water references, and we have some sports team references. It's Philadelphia, they love their sports. On holidays, we have patriotic colors and other color schemes. And the lights also illuminate the base of the piece, so it becomes something that people can interact with at night. So I'm going to turn it over to Tom to talk a little bit about our interests in Laramie.
Yeah, so before we came out, we sort of did a armchair research, and Googled and kind of tried to find out as much as we could before we came visited. And then, of course, in the last few days, we've just been absorbing all kinds of great real world information from visiting the site, the depot, meeting with all those different groups, as Todd mentioned, and just kind of absorbing as much as we can. It's been really fantastic. So I'll just quickly go through some of the sort of things that we started looking at, and this is kind of a beginning of our research, and again supplemented by what we've been hearing. But I think what struck us immediately, Laura and I came in through 287, and we were just blown away by how beautiful it is and how dramatic the sky was, and the grassy fields, and so just immediately enamored with the landscape and the sky here. So which I think is definitely going to be on our minds as we start coming up with concepts. We were, of course, we heard a lot even before we came about how recreation and getting out into the wilderness is such a huge part of the community here. So the river, the mountains nearby, and then we actually went up to the rock formations of Vindaloo. Yes, so I can never pronounce it. I don't know what's wrong with my brain, but it's probably from being up there and being really cold this morning. But but it was beautiful. It was just that fresh snow, and anyway, it's amazing. And it's only like 15-20 minutes out of town. So just starting to see some of the attributes here has been amazing. Of course, this like deeper history, looking at these amazing fossils and the history we had last night over at the art museum. We had, I think there was a couple scientists in the audience because they gave us a deeper dive on the ancient history of the area here in the valley and the geology. So that's really fascinating. Something we often do, which we started doing now, is looking at old historic maps, and you can really start to see how a community is sort of formed and grows and sort of changes, and a lot of it is really tied to the landscape here, the river, but of course the history of the trains, and the trains were here because of certain attributes too. This was something we didn't quite expect, that this whole historic area is just completely intact and it's vibrant. Like all the shops are active, and restaurants and bars, and so seems like an amazing quality that Laramie has that a lot of towns don't have, is a really vibrant historic downtown like this. We went over to the depot. We had a great talk with the caretaker there and learned a lot about the history of the trains. We'd never seen the snowplow train before, but this was pretty amazing. So, and we started to understand the history and the connection to the community with the Union Pacific. So, and of course, the history of cattle and ranching, is big, and it's obviously well covered with a lot of artworks in Laramie. And but we understand the historic connection to that, as well as it's still currently part of the current culture as well. Of course, heroes and villains, the colorful stories of people like the first woman voter, in the history of the U.S., and then of course Butch Cassidy and the prison. Unfortunately, the prison is closed, so we couldn't visit it. Closed for the season, I guess. But hopefully next time we're out, we'll be able to go and check that out. And then looking at more recent history, this kind of layering of old interesting signage and lighting and things like that, of things that were here more in the 40s, 50s, 60s. Some still around, like the YO theater sign. And then of course we had a great tour the last couple of days with the director. One of the co-directors is here. Sadie toured us around today, but checking out all the art and all the whole art community has been really fascinating too. So seeing how other artists have kind of what they've picked up on in Laramie and want to represent, and then thinking also about the community now and the current community coming together for celebrations such as Jubilee Days, the Farmers Market. We heard these are really, really big, popular events. And then of course the rodeo. And then when we were looking at the snow train, we saw that there was a snow train music fest here. So it sounds like there's a lot of really fun activities where the community really comes together. So, and then of course we were at the interesting building there with the art museum last night and got to hear some great comments. And then we also heard about the games being really a super big event in town here. And then the Border Wars, I think it was called. We were like, what is the Border Wars? And we realized it's the CSU game that was just here last week. So anyway, that's the main things. Yeah. So anyway, you guys may know, but we were kind of targeting sort of bookending two different artworks that would be gateways into and out of town, so downtown. So we're kind of focused on 3rd and Sheridan, and then also 3rd and is it Grant, right? Clark. Yeah, Clark. So up near the Travelodge, and then also down by the Montessori School. So looking at how the artwork can kind of be this gateway entry and exit into the city. So,
and I think the artworks, we don't intend that they'll be the same, but they'll be related to one another. So maybe two facets of the same story. Maybe you'll see one thing as you enter, a different thing as you're leaving. So we don't know what the story is yet, but we have, I guess, a framework.
Yes. So last night we shared, and also with the Planning Commission last night, just to get people thinking about, of course we're not from here and we're just trying to absorb as much as possible, but if anybody wanted to share anything that's unique, fascinating, fun little fact about Laramie, a landmark, story, place, plant, animal, person, anything, that would be fantastic to help us out. So.
Well, we had one other prompt.
Oh, yes. And then more the creative activity.
If you were driving into Laramie, it's a beautiful day, your car windows are down, your stereo is on, what's the song you want to be hearing? What's the song? What's the soundtrack to downtown Laramie? So we welcome any input about anything we've presented, or, any songs or stories you might want to share.
Okay. Counselor O'Doherty.
I didn't hear any mention of the Wyoming toad. We-
About the toad.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's have it on our computer.
Yeah.
It's endangered and it's totally coming back. We hope.
Oh, but
But thanks for that.
Okay. Counselor Lockhart. And we'll take questions and or comments.
Thank you, Mayor. I had the opportunity to hear all this last night because I'm the liaison for the Planning Commission. So I've got some comments, but I'll go around so everybody else can state theirs too before I take up all the time, because I've got 4.
Okay.
But the first question, I know you guys are working with the Laramie Art Coalition. Are you having them help create some of the art, or how are you working with the Laramie Art Coalition?
So yeah, we haven't gotten to the point where we know who we're working with, but often with our projects, we do as much as we can work with local artists and fabricators and stuff. So yeah, Todd wants to add something to that. Yeah.
Yes.
Honorable Mayor, through you to Councilor Newman, the Laramie Public Art Coalition isn't necessarily a body of working agents, right? The Laramie Public Art Coalition to me is the bridge between municipal artwork and public artwork infrastructure and how to get into the community. As over the past few days, Ishmael Dominguez has been guiding these two around the community and giving them introductions and tours, setting up the community events and doing those pieces. They're kind of the bridge of that gap to make sure that we're getting public involvement.
Yeah, and I wanted to add, Sadie, who's here tonight from the coalition, she gave us a great tour of the Civic Center today, and we did see some of the artists working in the studios. Just by some coincidence, we previously worked on a public art or a few installations with Anthony Tenorelli, who's one of the exhibit preparators at the Art Museum. So he is going to give us some names of people locally who might be able to help us with the fabrication and installation. And if he doesn't, we're going to get him to do it for us.
Councilors? Counselor Bowling.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Laura and Tom. I also happen to be the public programmer for the UW Art Museum. I apologize for not being at your talk last night. I had another engagement. And I just want to thank you for this work. That's really great. Anthony's going to be a great resource for you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great fabricators here. In just looking at your body of research so far, there's another public project I'd love to be able to show you and tour you, which is about the labor history, the history of the laborers that built the Transcontinental Railroad, specifically the immigrant and indigenous laborers, and features stories of families that have ancestral ties to Laramie here, including the family of Councilor Vigil here. That's housed in a reclaimed boxcar in a city lot down the street. And so I've sent you an email, and if you have some time tomorrow or the next day, I'm not sure how long you're here, I'd love to give you a tour of that.
Okay.
As a continuation of your research.
Well, unfortunately, we're leaving tomorrow morning. Someone did mention that boxcar, but I think, we didn't know where it was or anything.
Yeah.
But if is there any way we can learn more about it without physically?
Absolutely. I'll connect you.
Okay.
Great.
Okay. That would be
Thank
great.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds really interesting.
Councilor Vigil.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for being here. Thank you to Councilor Bowling for talking about high iron. I'm also happy to just chat more about the kind of like family history behind my small piece of that project. And so maybe on that note too, I think as you look at the history of Laramie and kind of like the culture of Laramie, something that I'd really encourage you to dive into is some stories that may not rise to the top. So it may not be on the first Google search of like history of Laramie. So, right, you have the first woman voter here in Laramie, but then you also have some really important diverse legacies like the Black 14, the legacy of Matthew Shepard. You have a lot of indigenous history here too. And so I just want to keep that kind of in the forefront of your minds as well as you think about kind of the history of this place, because I think the Laramie community is so I don't know. I've really found a place of belonging here, and that's kind of why I choose to sit up here every week too, right, and help represent that. I think the people of this community are really tight-knit. I think that we help each other in crises. I think we heard even just a small little example of that at the beginning of this meeting. And so when I think of Laramie, I'm always thinking of the people. I think we have a lot of amazing art around town of representations of what this place looks like. Mm-hmm. The beauty of the Laramie Range, the Snowies, all of those kinds of things are awesome and very well represented. So I personally would love to see kind of like when you look at something, I'd love to see a sense of belonging in that. And so, yeah, thanks.
Thanks.
Councillor Freed.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you both for all your work and research. And it sounds like you've done your homework, meeting with people in the community, and it sounds like Todd's given you quite a few folks to get some experiences. And so just the two things that I'll say is, in addition to everything that's been said and the research that you've already shown, I mean, the people is really, I think, what makes the community. And I work for a nonprofit that supports Forest Service, and so some of the history about the Medicine Bow Mountains, they called it Medicine Bow because they found mahogany in some of these areas to make sturdy bows, and also as tribes would come together, each spring to make these bows is kind of a place of learning, and then they would share stories, and so then it was like medicine making, this communication style for settlers, for indigenous communities, and so that's when I think about before Laramie was even the Laramie we know, that was happening in this valley, and so just that collaboration and working together, and there's hardy people here. So however we can incorporate that, I think is really unique. And I don't know why this popped in my head, but the song that I am thinking about driving through and having a smile on my face is "Give Me One Reason to Stay Here" by Tracy Chapman. And I think I would have a little head bob coming into town, bright sunny day. So that's the vibe I was feeling from your prompt. So thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Councillor Lockhart.
Thanks again, Mayor, and again, thank you, folks. I know one of the planning commissioners last night said, "Don't put any more cowboy stuff."
Yeah.
Well, I disagree.
Okay.
Councillor Vigil and I are both proudly wearing our Wyoming cowboy gear. And one thing about our community is we're cowboy tough. Okay, so it's a tough community. The state only has 600,000 or less people. It's because we're tough. We can deal with the elements. We deal with the boom and bust. And so I think it's important that that's incorporated into our town. Plus, 6 games a year, this town is packed with football. So, and then we have rodeos, Jubilee Days. So I think it's very important that that is incorporated. And as a follow-up to that, if I may.
Follow-up.
I know you're going from Clark Street to Sheridan, but I really, in my opinion, if we really want to capture people that come into town, we need to extend that to the ends. Because if you don't get it at Sheridan and they come in and they only go to, say, Maverick, they're not going to see the art. They're going to come in, get gas, get a drink, and split. So that's my opinion. I know there's a budget. That's my opinion. We want to capture them coming in for, so it's like, what's that? And then maybe driving further north or south or whatever they're coming in. So thank you.
Okay.
Great. Appreciate it.
Councillor Bowling.
Thank you, Mayor. And just a quick follow-up. Laura and Tom, just for the council's sake and for the public that may be listening, can you walk us through the process that you've worked out with the city kind of moving forward? When we'll see you again, kind of what the next steps in terms of community engagement are?
So I think our next step is to kind of consolidate everything we've heard, our research, into a document that we'll deliver to the city. And you all are welcome to review it and, make sure we haven't left anything out. And then we'll be developing conceptual ideas for the artwork, parallel with trying to figure out what the right site is. So Todd's been coordinating with some property owners to try to find us the best locations for the art. We'll be coordinating with the landscape architects who are also working on the corridor. And so I think we don't want to get too far ahead with our sculpture ideas until we know where they're going to land. But our goal is to come back in the winter sometime. I know it's a long winter here, so that's not very, but before April, with our concepts and have you all give us some feedback then. Does that sound right?
Design.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then basically from that feedback, then we're gonna get a preferred concept, and then we'll go into design after that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious if in your days of research and talking to people, if you ran into Laramie's water protectors and if people made you aware of the Casper Aquifer and how central that is to this community and how this community has been standing up for Casper Aquifer protection for a very long time. And there is a public arts and education program that goes on within the city and where an artist, storyteller, Paul Taylor, goes into the schools, teaches about the aquifer and how the mountains recharge and how it all works. And they do these Aboriginal style murals that are in multiple schools around the area. And the mural project has then gone on to produce prints of all these murals that get sold to go into a fund to continue education of the kids in the schools. So I'd love to, it's a big, big part of our city, and we've recently just completed work on a renewed Casper Aquifer Protection Plan, and we're just really proud of the work that we've done on that. So that's an important piece.
Yeah, that's fantastic. We hadn't heard about the sort of art and educational outreach component of that, but we had the good fortune of being at the Planning Commission last night, where they were honored with an award. The geologists and one planning commissioner was part of that process.
Yes,
I believe.
he was.
And so we got to see a little presentation on the aquifers, and we had a little talk afterwards with the
Very
two of them.
good.
So yeah,
and if you want any connection with some of those, just let us know. And the other thing, has anyone explained to you about the Gem City?
Yes, the lights and we're all over that. We love that.
yeah.
So that it's about the springs and the water.
Oh no, we were told that it was Laramie was the first city in the state with electricity, so the lights kind of lit up the prairie, and as people approached, it looked like
that's one story. And another one that goes back is that we're in a basin. We've got the aquifer. We've got multiple springs within this city that supply our water source, which we're very proud of as well. And from the mountains and the hills, as you would look down, the little spring ponds would look like gems in the sunlight.
Okay.
So that's another story or myth about the Gem City.
Like which day and night too.
Yeah. So, well, very interesting. Any other? Councilor Bowling.
Thank you, Mayor, and I apologize for hogging the microphone this evening. This is just something that is right up my alley. As somebody that works in public art and community engagement. I mean, I think even just here, you've probably heard an overwhelming number of ideas in terms of feedback and research, and I'm sure that was the case all day today and all day yesterday. And I also understand, how limited budgets are, that our town grant's only going to go so far. But I will just say this, and I don't mean to, I don't mean this to come across as a criticism, but a day and a half of a community engagement process is a very short amount of time in order to fully develop and sort of have that participatory aspect. So I would just plant in the ear of our city leaders, if there's a way that we can look at bringing Laura and Tom back for additional engagement periods over, a longer period of time, then that's something that I think would be worth that expenditure. And I know that Mr. Feaser is immediately going to respond to what I have to say, so I'm just going to let him talk.
Honorable Mayor, through you to Councilor Bowling. Unbeknownst to Laura and Tom, I just about 1 minute ago sent an email to them that said I would be happy to arrange the contract or get an amendment to bring them back for further public involvement. I think in listening to the discussion, that'll be something that we'll discuss. One of the other things that we had talked about is I think I found an avenue for some additional funds towards project budget, because quite frankly, I'm not sure that the $285,000 we had originally planned on is going to be enough to do this, but I think we've got an avenue in order to be able to expand that art budget to really make it the impactful piece that we are. But I can show you on the timing of my emails how they will match up with you, Councilor Bowling.
I can thank Mayor. May I follow up? Just respond real fast.
Follow up.
Mr. Feaser, Assistant City Manager, soon to be Interim City Manager. I really appreciate that. And I would just say that a day and a half is great. 4 days, 5 days in a community is I think it's not until that third day when you really start to feel like, oh, okay, I've gained trust of people and I'm moving kind of forward, and also I think artistically your ideas are able to gel. So that's just food for thought for the Assistant City Manager. Thank you very much.
Is there anything else before we go to the public? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Seeing none, back to council for any final comments. Oh, Councilor Shumway.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to express probably an unpopular opinion of what I think should be the symbol of Laramie, Wyoming. And I'll start with, every time I drive to the Denver airport, I see this big blue stallion with red eyes, and it scares my grandkids, but it's something that just gets fixed. And I don't know what that has to do with DIA, but it's something that I look at. What I would love to do is see somebody come up with the funds necessary to make Steamboat and the cowboy riding steamboat the symbol of Laramie, Wyoming, as they drive into Laramie, see that, and that'll never come out of their mind, because every time I see someone with a lapel that has Steamboat on, I think, are you from Laramie? Because to me, that's the symbol of Laramie. Now, I know that's not art as art is today, but that's something I would love to have as a symbol of Laramie, Wyoming, a giant statue of Steamboat and the cowboy riding Steamboat as people come into the town.
Okay. Then that ends this work session. Do you have a final comment?
Yeah, just a few more final comments. I hope you can find the comfort with Tom and Laura that I found with them just over the past couple of days. Fantastic to see them interact with YDOT, because YDOT's going to have impact on this project as we move forward. Laura and Tom did recognize that we are having a few struggles that I would like to reach out to council if you have any connection with the Shaheed King family that owns a Travel Inn or St. Lawrence O'Toole about acquisition or leasing or easements, we've just seemed to run into a couple of roadblocks and some, how do I say, non-communication at a certain point related to those projects that if any of you counselors have any contacts in that area, we would sure appreciate some assistance in trying to get some movement. Because far and wide for me, and I can understand Councillor Lockhart's idea about stretching it out, but we have to secure the appropriate sized land for this artwork to really have the impact that we want. Mm-hmm. And this is my ploy to reach out to my council to give us some help to try to get some of this going. We have fantastic concepts, landscape architect concepts that create space for these artworks to land in. And it's just a matter of getting these private landowners to participate with us as we do this beautification, continue to move forward. So that's the one last facet I would like, but I certainly have enjoyed having Tom and Laura in town the past couple of days. It's funny that Councillor Bowling and I might think alike. We might need to get a councillor's chair and spend some time together learning what's wrong with each other, but we'll get there. And then finally, my song as I come into Laramie, because we didn't hear too many of them. I'm an 80s rock guy, Marching to Mars by Sammy Hagar. And I say that because Laramie's like no other place in Wyoming, and it would be like marching to Mars as you come from Wyoming to Laramie. So I just wanted to add that to the conversation.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on now to our second work session, landfill reuse stores, Director Webb.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Good to be here. So we were asked to present a couple items tonight related to our solid waste division. Charles Hoyt, our recycling and diversion coordinator, is here. J.R. Slingerland, our solid waste division manager, would normally present, but he's under the weather, so here I am. So landfill reuse stores. This thing works, right? It's just the side one? Yeah. Okay, cool. There we go. The first one we're going to talk about, I just pulled a few that I'm familiar with that I'm going to talk about. Most of them are not here in Wyoming. We got a couple in Wyoming we're going to talk about. But this one I'm real familiar with. This is located at a large volume transfer station. Transfer station is basically a place where people bring their trash. There's not a landfill available. They load it into larger trucks and haul it to a landfill. There used to be a landfill here, but it closed for environmental reasons. They built a transfer station there. I'm real familiar with it because I worked here for many years at this transfer station, worked and supervised this facility. And in 1989, we built a thrift store on site. I got real good at a backhoe that summer. I dug all the footings on this building. It's 300 feet long and 50 feet wide. So it's 15,000 square feet, huge building. It's open 6 days a week. And at that time, there was 2 full-time employees and 2 part-time employees. The 2 full-time employees worked the floor just like they would at any thrift store. The 2 part-time employees, we had one that came in and he worked on appliances, refrigerators and washing machines, things like that, and got those fixed up and resold. And the other one worked on electrical stuff, maybe lamps, TVs, things like that. This facility at that time was really busy because there was no mandatory trash hauling in the area. So there was a lot of self-haul residential people who'd come in. We averaged around between 1,000 and 1,200 folks a day. Most of those were private residential people. So they were coming anyway, right? And they were bringing lots of stuff. When I moved out of my parents' house, I furnished my entire home from this store for probably $50. And I'm talking couches and lamps and coffee tables and everything. I don't have any of that left anymore. I take it back. I have some baseball cards left that I purchased at this store. But anyway, today it's a little different. There's mandatory trash pickup in that area now. So their residential traffic has gone way down. So they're not doing near as much business there. They're only using half of that facility now as a thrift store. The other half is turned into a maintenance shop. The building was actually built with funds from a state grant. $150,000 from a state grant. This is in California, so lots of grants there for recycling and diversion programs. It operated basically as a nonprofit. It was really just, we want to divert this material. And the reason was because we were trucking all that material 3-hour round trip in 18-wheelers. And so anything we could divert and save from that hauling, we saved on hauling expenses. It was originally named Another Man's Treasure, but when the facility sold, the gentleman, I believe, copyright wrote that and took it with him. And so they had to change the name to Drop and Shop. This is another facility in Yolo County. The Big Blue Barn was originally a maintenance facility at the landfill, and it they outgrew it. The facility got bigger and bigger, and so they built a new facility. And this actually sat vacant for a little while. And they said, "Hey, let's try to do this store." So you can see what's accepted there and what's not accepted there. A lot of these facilities don't accept fabric items. The nature of a landfill is it's very dusty and dirty. So they don't like, couches and clothing and things like that. Some do, some don't, but most do not. This one's open 7 days a week, 5 hours a day, and employs a full-time employee. It's located before the weigh station. So folks can, when they come in, they can maybe take their coffee tables or whatever it is over there and then go back to the scale. So they're not getting charged for that as disposal also. This facility is at the Lamb Canyon landfill. I've been there many times also. It's only open for 3 hours on the last Saturday of every month. Yeah, kind of strange. So the items are placed in the storage by their staff. They don't take any public donations. Staff sees something, they pull it out and they set it aside. They put it in these seagoing containers. You can kind of see they're focusing on bulky items and usually pretty good items. They sell them for really cheap. And usually when they open the gates, there's a whole drove of thrift store owners from the area that come in and buy the stuff for cheap and resell it. You see that at a lot of these because these stores at the landfills are it's not their primary objective, right, is to have a store. Their primary objective is the landfill, but they want to divert that waste. So things are either sold or given away for very cheap. And so it's the nature there that there's a lot of other thrift store businesses that are for profit that come in and buy and remove that stuff. This facility looks pretty fancy. It was originally their recycling drop-off area for their trucks. Like we'd have our single stream, we go around, we'd bring it in there and sort it and what have you. They outgrew that, so they built a material recovery facility off-site, a huge facility. This is co-located with their household hazardous waste drop-off area and reuse store. It sat vacant for a little bit after they moved. They decided, hey, let's try a thrift store. So they opened that up. Again, it's located, you can see it's located before the scale house up there in the back corner. So folks can drop off things there before they get weighed. This was originally operated by a nonprofit group. You'll see that a lot at these facilities. They don't want to use their landfill staff to do that. So they contract with outside nonprofit groups. It's not anymore, and I'm not sure why it's not, but it was for many years operated by an outside nonprofit group. Most of these facilities that I've just showed you are located in states that have very strict recycling and diversion rules and regulations. And so they're required to recycle or divert a certain percent of material. And so they do a lot of these programs to get to that. If they don't get to that, they have state funding that gets withheld. So it's very important that they do these. A lot of times, if they can't meet that percent requirement and they start a new program, the state will give them a credit toward that. And so that's what gets a lot of these going for them in these other communities or other states. We do have a couple here in Wyoming, the Sheridan Landfill Mall. Charles reached out to the recycling coordinator up there and got some information from them. They have the building here that they built for this. The recycling coordinator there didn't know the cost of the building, but based on the pictures I saw and the size, is probably between $80,000 and $100,000. It's got a concrete floor, some heaters and stuff in it, mostly just a pole barn. They don't take any fabric items, no knickknacks. And basically is what they do is when somebody comes in, the scale operator will look and say, hey, that looks like a nice coffee table. If you want, you can take it over to the landfill mall and donate it there. They don't have to because they're paying to dispose of it. It's their choice, but a lot of times they'll just take it over and drop it off. They charge $6 for every item. So when folks come in, they can drive by the mall, check it out. It doesn't matter what's in there. It's $6. That's what they charge. They told us they generated $8,000 last year. And they utilize their existing staff. So they don't have anybody that really staffs the place. It's kind of like you drop it off and then on your way out, you can check and see if there's something you want and you take it. The staff they do use is their landfill staff. They come down about once a week. They clean the place out and start fresh. I should have put some pictures of the inside stuff. They just kind of have, it's basically furniture, just kind of set around tables. And I think there was some workout equipment or something in there. The interesting one was the Glen Rock transfer station. So they presented at the waste conference this year. It was in Casper. I think it was in Casper. Cheyenne. So they presented and we weren't familiar with this, but they, my understanding is they had an area on their facility that was really sandy and dusty and the wind would blow the sand. So they took some wood chips, some compost, and they mixed it in there just to keep the dust down, and stuff started growing. So they kept it going, and they now have vegetables. If you'd like to go, I don't suggest that from that facility, but if you want to, they also have some chickens, and they provide eggs and firewood. They have piles of firewood there that people can pick up. This facility is open 6 days a week, which seems like a lot to me. It serves a small area. And so my guess is that their folks have some time on their hands to handle this, but interesting concept. I've never seen fruits and vegetables given away or sold at a waste site before. I've seen them grow there, but I haven't seen them. One of the items that is very popular across the state or across the country is household hazardous waste reuse stores. Items like paints, pesticides, insecticides, household cleaners, things like that you see on the shelves there. We actually recently completed the household hazardous waste building out at the landfill. And when we did that, we actually designed a small area inside there to be able to do something like this in the future. Few requirements. We need to work with DEQ to get that authorized within our permit, which I don't think is a big deal. We need to work with our risk management people to work on some liability waivers. And of course, train our staff to make sure we're putting the right stuff in there. Sometimes we get items in that are completely unused, unopened. Usually it's items that are lightly used. Somebody bought a product, used it for a little bit, threw it under the sink. Now they're cleaning out, whatever. Or with our town people coming and going a lot of times, right? So the benefits are reduced disposal costs. You take all the items that are on these shelves here, you put them in a 55-gallon drum and call Safe Harbors, and they come up and pick that up, and it's $500-600 between the disposal and the labor and the trucking, right? It gets really expensive. We reuse the items and then reduce the waste. So something we're thinking about and looking at, we're trying to get our old facility cleaned up and cleaned out first. And then something we're going to look a little bit more into here. I put store on there, but most of these facilities I've seen, they don't sell these items. They give them away. There are some that will bulk up paint into 5-gallon containers and sell it for $5 or something. But normally what I've seen at these facilities is it's a giveaway, not necessarily a store. Talking fast. So that's kind of the stuff on the stores. What I want to do next, I've got a few slides that talks about our waste, our recycling and diversion programs here in Laramie. And just want to talk real quick. So you can see on here, the City of Laramie, those are all of our programs on the green side. If you looked at this 15, 20 years ago, I think there would have been one item up there. We did metal. So in the last 15 years or so, we've really grown our recycling and diversion programs. We're really proud of that. And then some other options within Laramie that aren't necessarily through the City of Laramie, but some other options up there. This is our single stream, or not even our single stream. This is our recycling numbers from recycling diversion numbers from 2024. Those are in tons. So single stream recycling was 1,246 tons. That's the big number. Compost was 790 tons. Glass was 66. That was three 18-wheeler loads out the door. And that's the picture down there is the glass bunker that we built, and the glass goes in there. When the truck comes in, we just load it right out of there. I was just going to let you guys look at that for a second. The last thing I wanted to do is tout our app a little bit. If you don't know, we have a Laramie Waste and Recycling app. Since 2018, 292 views for schedules. So you can go on there and look at your schedule for your trash and recycling. I get an alert every Tuesday morning that says, hey, today's the day to put your trash out. And there's usually some cool thing that JR or Charles put in there that gives some information on a recycling program. And then over 83,000 material views. So on there, there's a button you can click that says what goes where. You type in just about anything you can think of, and it'll tell you what to do with it, where it goes, whether it can be recycled. Sometimes it'll even mention, clothing, go to New to You, go to Goodwill, what have you. So pretty cool. Our top 10 materials of all time. They're pretty common items, but those are the ones. And then on there also, if there's a material that you find isn't on there, you can suggest that. And then JR and Charles can look at that, do some research, and build that into the app. So get the app. It's awesome. I get those alerts every Tuesday morning, and I don't forget often. I was going to say I never forget, but I don't forget often to get it out because of those. So with that, if there's any questions on this item, I'd be happy to take them.
Councilors, questions and or comments? Councilor Lockhart.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Director Webb. I think this is a great idea. The summer of 1990, I worked for Wyoming Disposal, and I can't tell you, I did exactly like you did, except I didn't have to pay for it. I furnished my entire apartment on everything that I would find. If we pulled up to a dumpster and there was something I could use, I set it aside, then came back later and grabbed it. And especially tech students moving out, college students moving out, moving in, things of that nature. I think instead of just throwing it away and it taking up landfill space, if we could find a way to utilize a program like this and it would benefit someone else, instead of, if they don't take it to Goodwill or they don't donate it and they take it out there, I think if we can reuse it, I think, yes, it's a great idea. So thank you.
Councilor O'Doherty.
This might be a question for Charles. Those the big cottonwood stumps that are out there, do they, what happens to them? Because there is some interest in burying wood to sequester carbon. So I'm just wondering, those big old stumps that aren't going to just get thrown in the chipper, what happens to them?
Yeah, Mayor, through you, we actually do grind those up and they end up in the compost program. A lot of times we let those sit for a couple of years and dry out because they go through the grinder a lot quicker that way. If we put them in there when they're green, they take a long time and they can really do some wear and tear on the grinder. So we usually let those sit a couple of years.
Follow up?
I'm thinking that that's something that people in Laramie that burn wood for heat might take off our hands, that you wouldn't have to put it in the grinder. Thanks.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation and the information. I as you were talking through these, I liked the idea of Sheridan's because it seems like the most hands-off, the most least staff-heavy option. And as you were talking about it, also made me think, I know that, I wonder if there's an opportunity for partnership. The school district, and I cannot think of the woman's name offhand right now, but is often looking for furniture for families who are in need. And so I wonder if there's also an opportunity to kind of circle in with them to say, we've got some of these things. I also liked the idea of staff being the ones who pick up what goes into that, because then it's not just any trash, which makes me think it would, I mean, any piece of furniture which is like maybe falling apart, because then that again feels like the lesser amount of staff time. So I love this idea if we can, keep the maintenance of the whole thing at a minimum. And I also loved the household hazardous waste section. That seems like I'd go out there. I think that's great. Yes, so do I. I'm like,
Councilors? Councilor Bowling.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Director Webb. Really, I was just going to echo what Councilor Richardson said about Sheridan being that example that really speaks. I agree with all those points. And then I just wanted to say that, just last night I used my fridge magnet because I had a piece of plastic that had two different types of plastic, one on the lid and one on the container. And I found out everything I needed to know just from that magnet. So keep printing those too.
Councilor Freed.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Director Webb. Just seeing everything that the recycling program is doing right now is awesome. And I remember back in the Conservation Corps when I was working with you to recycle glass when the ARC stopped recycling glass. And I think there's some really cool strategies here and ideas. Like Vice Mayor Richardson said, I think, and in terms of staff time, at least in that program, I'm not a part of it anymore, but the Wyoming Conservation Corps is here in Laramie, and they're always looking for volunteer hours that's conservation based, their AmeriCorps program. And so, there might be other folks like that in this community that could also provide pickup or a collection or some sort of that process to ease staff time too, or who need volunteer hours. And so as this starts to come along, I'd be happy to make those connections if it's relevant. But I feel like there'd be a lot of people and different nonprofits in this community that would be interested in helping out.
Okay. I really appreciate the presentation. I love these ideas. And I thought your idea about the part-time people that will come in and do minor repair. And I think about how many newly retired handy people we have in this town that might like to do something like that. And I'm one of those people that I just don't know how to fix things. And sometimes I have something very simple and I'd like to see if I can fix it rather than just toss it and have it go into the landfill. So I think these are very creative ideas. I'd like to continue moving forward with how we might implement this at some point and what it would take. And that piece with the materials, the cleaning and other materials, that was pretty brilliant. And I've been at the end of a move and had a big box of all that stuff that was under the kitchen sink. And it's like, oh my God, what do I do with this now? So great ideas. Thank you. And I appreciate the time that it took to put this together.
Charles brought some magnets.
Yay. Charles, we love the magnets. And
where did Nancy go? Thanks, Nancy. Do you might need one? Otherwise, we should put them out for the public.
we can put them out. I have one.
I'll take some and give them to my neighbors. There you go.
And check the app.
And check the app, yes.
Yeah, it needed my password and I couldn't remember my password.
No, you don't need password.
Dang it.
Your sign, it doesn't put out a sign.
Oh, to the app, to get into the,
You don't
like
need
say,
to-
download the app, my phone went,
Oh,
it's like,
yeah.
and it never needs me to, it usually just uses, I just double click it.
Throw this back to Thursday night.
Okay, so is there any public comment on this agenda item? Seeing none, back to council for any final comment. All right. We will move on to our next work session. Thank you, Director Webb. And back again for phase 1 of diversion and waste reduction strategy. Welcome.
Mayor, council. I'm gonna grab a drink of water real quick.
We have some up here if you need any extra.
But I made sure to bring one tonight. So as part of your 2025 goals and objectives, one of those items was to develop a waste reduction strategy with diversion goals to reduce landfill waste. We're splitting that goal out into a couple phases. The first phase is to conduct a waste characterization study. I don't know why I have a hard time saying that. A waste characterization study is a systematic process that you go through to really look at the types of waste and the quantities of waste that are coming into your facility, and even a deeper dive sometimes is to look at where those are coming from. Areas of town, whether it's businesses or it's residential, right? The graph at the bottom here, I believe that is from a town in Vermont. I don't know why we picked that one there. These are all over the internet. And if you go and look at a lot of these, this is some of the information you get out of a waste characterization study. If you go and look at these, a lot of them are very similar. But depending on where you're at in the country, and depending on what's happening in your town, they can be very different, right? Is there a university in your town? Is the town very industrial? Is it mainly residential? Your waste coming in the gate is going to be very different depending on what's happening in your town, within your region, within your state. And so it's important for us to go through this process. We've never done one. I really wish we would have done one before we started the single stream recycling program, so we really knew what that waste stream looked like and really set that benchmark, right? But we haven't done one, and it really, in my opinion, needs to be done so that we can really identify what's in our waste. So how's a waste characterization study conducted? I've been part of many of these, and they can be kind of nasty. But what happens is that they'll randomly choose a vehicle when it comes through the gate, right? They don't know who he is. It's random. They may set a time and they say, okay, the next one that comes in at 3:00, that's the one we're pulling. So they randomly pull them. They take the materials from that load and they sort them. And I mean, they go piece by piece through that load and they separate those out into different categories: metals, organics, glass, what have you. And then they weigh those and they analyze those materials. And then they put some data reporting together for us. And really, we can look at that and say, okay, from your residential community, this is the types and characteristics of wastes that are coming in. From your business areas, this is what's coming in. And what that does is it allows us to identify what that stuff is coming in and then plan strategically for what we're going to do in the future from a recycling and diversion standpoint, right? It really allows us to look at, it gives us that data to know what's there. I can go and work at the landfill all day. Charles is out there. We can look at that and tell you what we think that composition is. But what we really need to target comes out in that waste characterization study. In the end, that planning, that strategic planning and those programs that we may put in place reduces the landfill use and results in cost savings. So the waste characterization study is the first part in coming up with policy decisions on what we're doing from a recycling and diversion standpoint. If we find out that cardboard is a really high percentage in our waste, we can do targeted education on that, right? We can do a targeted program toward that material. We're doing more and more educational programs. Charles goes to the elementary schools quite a bit and talks to the kids. There's a lot of research out there in the recycling industry about that education toward the kids, right? Then the kids can go home and guilt their parents into doing what's right. That's not what the research says. That's how I translate it. So it helps us to implement the waste strategies, set landfill acceptance criteria, and design incentive fee structures if you want to. When I look at the set landfill acceptance criteria, I'll tell you about one of the facilities that I managed was in kind of a small rural community, and some industry came in and the building just blew up, right? They were building homes like crazy and businesses like crazy. And we were right in the middle of a waste characterization study. And we said, man, there's an awful lot of construction and demolition debris that's coming in through the gate. And so we actually put a ban on construction materials for being landfilled. I shouldn't say all construction materials, basically wood, right? Lumber and things like that. And we were able to divert that. We ground it up, and we some of it went to a waste to energy plant. Some of it we used on site for slope stabilization and things like that. But it was a policy decision that we made through that waste characterization study that we were doing and seeing what was happening in the community. So a waste characterization study reveals the truth. It tells us exactly what's in our trash and what to target and what programs to work on. These waste characterization studies are done all over the country. You can go on EPA's website, and there's many states that actually have done statewide waste characterization studies. I think we're one of 5 that haven't. We actually got an email or I think you guys had a meeting with our DEQ folks the other day. They're doing a waste diversion study right now for the whole state. So we're getting there. But over the past years, it's really driven the innovation. It's driven the recycling markets. People have been able through these studies to identify, hey, we got a lot of material here. What are we going to do? And then you have maybe a private company, a private market that is like, well, man, if they got that much material, we better figure out what to do with this stuff, right? Waste to energy stuff has started from waste characterization studies, trying to figure out what to do with those other materials that are in there. So these studies have driven innovation across the country for many years. I added the upside down triangle there, the waste management hierarchy. This is in the industry, very common thing for us to refer to. The most preferred is source reduction and reuse. So source reduction, one of the first things I think of is like this plastic bottle, right? These used to be a lot thicker. They're getting thinner and thinner, right? So they're reducing the amount of materials they put in there. Packaging, I mean, sometimes you order something that's this big and it comes in a bigger box with the packing peanuts. A lot of shipping companies now are just shipping the little box instead of all the extra materials. And then reuse, Councilor Doherty's got her mug up here, Councilor Bowling, right? The rest of us are not living good. The next preferred is recycling and composting. And then energy recovery, very common in a lot of different regions, not necessarily here. But I know the Northwest and East Coast, there's a lot of energy recovery happening right now, whether it's waste to energy or even landfill gas recovery. And then treatment and disposals at the bottom of the hierarchy. That's the last thing we want to have to do is dispose of it. So next steps, we've started working with Tri-Hydro to develop a scope of work for a waste characterization study. We're planning on completing that in the spring of 2026. We want to do it before the university's out. We want those students here so that we can see really what's going on there. So it's going to be tricky before school gets out, but well, it's warm enough to still work outside, right? Yeah. Then we'll analyze that data. We're going to set us up with a good benchmark so that we can measure our future progress. And then that's when we'll come back and we need to develop a strategic plan, right? Like I talked about earlier, coming up with policies and goals, achievable goals. And you'll see in here a lot of times, I have the word achievable in here a lot because I got to tell you, 25 years ago, I was at a recycling conference and there was a community that stood up in there and they said, we have set our goal for recycling and diversion for our town at 95% within 25 years. That was 25 years ago. Guess what? They didn't meet it. and I was sitting there in the audience, and me and some other people going, why are you going to set a goal that you know you can't meet? Set an achievable goal. When you achieve that, set in your next goal, right? But they went full bore. And now the person that stood up and said that, I know is retired, and now they're scrambling, coming up with new goals. So you'll see in here many times in my presentation, I had achievable goals. To me, that's key. We want to set goals that are achievable and are reasonable, and we can get there. And then when we get there, we can up that goal a little bit, but don't want to set us up for failure. So anyway, that's the next steps. That's where we're at. And I'll take any questions on that if you have them.
Thank you. Councillor Lockhart.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Director Webb. I think this is another fantastic idea, and the awareness. You know, one thing that drives me crazy, and I was just sharing with Councillor Freed right before this started, is when it's recycling day and I see my neighbors that don't have a recycling dumpster, tote. It's like, what are you doing? Yeah. So I think it's just bringing awareness. But I'm kind of curious who gets to participate in the waste characterization study because I couldn't do it. I have a weak stomach. So who gets to sort through that stuff?
Yeah, Mayor, Council, the sorting will primarily happen with the consultant, Tri-Hydro. They'll probably bring on some interns and things like that. We'll assist with equipment, bringing the material over and things like that, but the actual sorting will happen through the consultant.
So no, see.
The new city councilors, that will be their initiation. Councillor O'Doherty.
So the Environmental Advisory Committee has been talking a lot about this, about waste diversion. And I was hoping that instead of doing the gross job, which I will volunteer for, sorting through trash, the thing about dog poop though, like that's kind of scary. But I was wondering, like in forestry, the way we'd measure how much dead wood is in an area is you do transects, and then you do measure in one transect, you measure every piece of wood that you encounter, the diameter, and then you can extrapolate. You do a bunch of samples, and then you know that there's X number of whatever, the coarse woody debris. So I was hoping that instead of doing the gross job, that we could first do something with like photographic transects, because when I go in there, what I see is a lot of cardboard. So I thought that the staff, what they know about our waste would be the best starting point rather than the expense of looking at all of the trash individually. But And then also because stuff coming from single family homes that have the single stream bin versus apartments, that's going to be pretty different. So I feel like the cardboard coming from apartments and people that order all of their products instead of going to the store. I just feel like that's the place to start. But if you wouldn't mind, I would like to read the key findings, just the top lines from the Environmental Advisory Committee, unless Chair Jacob Pack would like to do that. But they did a survey, used our survey tools. Is it okay if I do that? I'll just do the top points, just the heading. So the community values waste diversion, but sees room for improvement. 83% of respondents thought we should pursue more diversion. Access and clarity are major barriers to participation, like people not knowing where to put it. Cost remains a deterrent for some, like if you have just a bucket of recycling, you don't want to go pay for the whole, as if you were bringing in a pickup truck full of recyclables, and that there's broad support for.
Hi, Council. Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Thank you. I apologize for not having a camera. I did not bring my camera with me, and so apparently I don't have one tonight. But I did want to wrap up this topic, and Councillor, you've just helped me to do that, Councillor O'Doherty, because I did want to kind of wrap it up by reminding the Council that one of your goals adopted for this year was to develop a waste reduction strategy with diversion goals to reduce landfilled waste. Then, of course, as Councillor O'Doherty told you, our Environmental Advisory Commission did some subsequent surveying of the community that really echoed that goal. In visiting with Director Webb and the crew out at Solid Waste, we quickly came to the realization that this study that he has described to you was really essential and pivotal, and something that we hadn't contemplated needing to do in order to get to a comprehensive waste reduction strategy. So I just wanted to remind you that you do have that goal. I advised the Council last month that because we do need to do this waste characterization study first, it's unlikely that you will attain having a full waste reduction strategy in place by the end of this calendar year, as you had hoped, but that the characterization study is an enabling piece to get you to that goal, likely in the subsequent year in 2026. And if Director Webb would like to add anything to that to wrap this up, please do, Brooks. But Council, I just wanted to remind you this is part of that goal, but it will take a little longer than this year to get there.
Thank you, City Manager. Councillor Freed.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thanks again, Director Webb. And I guess a couple comments. One, I'd be happy to dig in people's trash. I know it sounds weird, but I'll get out there and help out if that's the thing. And then, you know, is it even possible? I guess I have some questions that we might need to study first, but, you know, to generate some of those gases and generate energy from our landfill of our size. And, you know, maybe those are just big picture questions that we need to hear about the study. But man, I mean, any way that we can generate energy from our waste, super interested in that. And the last thing I'll say, maybe Assistant City Manager could jump in here, but you know, our city code, if someone has a certain number of units in an area, they can opt out of single stream recycling. Is that correct? And if it is, do we know why? You know, it feels like if we have more people in a more condensed area, we should be requiring recycling.
Mayor, through you, to that question, city ordinance requires that a dwelling with 2 kitchen units or less are required to use city services. Anything over that, so if it's an apartment with 3 or 4 in it, they can use outside services. Even if they use outside trash services, we still offer recycling for a lot of those folks. Some of those facilities we can't necessarily safely get our trucks in. So when we get that call, we go in and we evaluate it. But we have a lot of businesses and multifamily residences that we do service through recycling. We can generally do that. But ordinance requires 2 units or less. And then when that ordinance came into place, I think it was around 2012. And then in 2018, we added in to allow the recycling for businesses and other units if they requested, but it's not required. The other question was, I'm so sorry.
No, you're totally fine. And it was just about energy recovery. And is it possible with a landfill of our size, you know, from your knowledge, and maybe that's better suited to do this analysis first and then get feedback, but just if you had any ideas.
It really comes down to the size of our landfill, right? We don't have enough waste in place. We're in a very arid environment, which slows down that decomposition process. When you look at a lot of those facilities that have those waste to energy facilities, they're huge facilities, and they're in wetter environments. I had one of the facilities I managed out in California. We did waste energy there. We sell the landfill gas to a company that then generated into electricity and sold it off. But I mean, we could fit 10 of these facilities. I mean, it's the scale is incredibly different. Casper has a landfill flare. Even Casper, the largest one in the state, they don't have enough landfill gas to really produce electricity. They have a flare, and that flare runs very infrequently because there's just not enough gas there. So it's really how much waste is in place, how quick the decomposition is having, and our arid and cold environment slows that process down.
Councillor O'Doherty.
I just wanted to add that Mr. Levine, his background is methane or emissions in his last job, and he thinks that our landfill is not generating much methane. And I believe Mr. Slingerland in the test well, whatever you have out there to test for gases, they also don't find that much. So I think that's part of the reason too.
Yeah, Mayor 3, we've got a methane test well out there, and it's like there's nothing. we run the test on it, we get nothing. It's just not there.
Okay, and I appreciate the work you've done on this, and I really support the study. I think to have real data, some of us may look at a pile and we might see something because it's meaningful to us. So Councillor O'Doherty's on cardboard. So she's going to look at it and she's going to see cardboard, and I might see plastic cups. But to really do that study, then we can put together a strategic approach where we understand what's coming in from what area. We can do targeted education and intervention and things like that. So I think we're really heading in the right direction, where we don't put together, it's very costly and timely to put together an education program for the community, and we don't want to be putting together programs that are other than what we need. So thank you. I really support this pragmatic and proactive approach. Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Okay. Final comments? Councillor Freed.
Thank you, Mayor. I also support this study and be really curious, a couple of thoughts that I've had, and I don't know if they're reasonable at all out there, but thinking about putting some sort of renewable energies on landfill areas that have, been capped or closed off. And if it's unused space that we can never build on, is there a way we could put solar or wind or something, even if we're not generating energy? So I just wanted to make a comment that I feel like, through this process and driving innovation, as Director Webb said, I feel like there's a lot that we can do with that land. And so really excited for it.
Thank you. Thank you. This concludes our work sessions. And next we'll go to City Council updates. Who's ready to start? Councilor Freed.
Thank you, Mayor. Mine is easy tonight. I have no new updates and no meetings since our last work session.
Thank you. Councilor Lockhart.
Thank you, Mayor. With Planning Commission yesterday, of course, the 3rd Street Beautification Project introduction of the firm they're using. So I got to see that. And then also Mr. Evans, it was his last meeting and he couldn't make it. So there is an opening on Planning Commission. So just an FYI to get the
Oh, I have somebody I wanted to put there.
Get the word out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm just kind of skimming through my calendar so I can remember what I had last. Pilot Hill had an incredibly short meeting. I thought I was going to be a little late to it because I was taking my kiddo to a doctor's appointment and missed it completely because it was that short. So I've never been to that short of a Pilot Hill meeting. It blew my mind. Also, Beautification met and they are making progress on getting lighting down 3rd Street. So grant funding has come in from a number of different entities to help support that 3rd Street group of businesses that have struggled so much during all of this construction. And then they're looking at opportunities to use their beautification grant funding to do kind of a match grant with other businesses in the downtown who might be interested in that. So that was pretty exciting. And sorry, just double checking that I haven't missed anything else. The only other thing that if it's okay with you, Mayor, sharing from my work perspective, the Community Foundation and Women's Foundation is hosting a gathering of elected officials and our food banks and like Family Promise to come together and just learn what all of these impacts will be to SNAP at both the federal and state level. And so I sent a doodle poll from my work account to council. If you are interested in coming to that, obviously not required at all. It's not a council thing, but please fill out that doodle poll and I'll get something out hopefully by tomorrow or Friday. That's it. Or Wednesday or Friday, Wednesday or Thursday.
Vice Mayor, I really want to thank you and also acknowledge Trey Sherwood and Josh and Ted for all the work that they're putting into bringing our community together so that we're working in consortium to support people and address the issues during this kind of tense time. So thank you for your work on that. Let's see, I'll let you do town. You want to do town and gown? Were you there? On October 15, we had a town and gown meeting. And we continue to kind of revamp and to consolidate our efforts. And we realized that previously once we reorganized, we had so many people involved that it was maybe too many cooks in the kitchen. And so we have selected fewer individuals from each division or organization, et cetera. And we've decided to focus now on rental resource and support, to be a resource and support for the renters in our area. They have found an app that is provided free to higher education. They're investigating that in others that might be available. And to try and create within the year something that will be supportive, a good resource and educational, and may include something that tags on to our interns' work about outstanding landlords. And so there would be a list of people who meet certain criteria on that app. Also, on the 15th, I attended the Laramie Soup Kitchen United Way kickoff, and that was good, and we're off to a good start. On Monday, the 20th, I was speaker at the Progressive Voter Alliance and I spoke about stormwater management program update. And I will say that I got quite a few questions when compared to other speakers, and people were very interested and etc. On the 23rd, Linda Devine offered a writing op-ed by a wildfire reporter in Tennessee, and Councilor O'Doherty and I attended that, so maybe we'll be getting some op-eds out there. On the 27th, Monday, the Albany County Mental Health Board met. The ACT program right now, with the use of the case manager for law enforcement, we thought we had two very good candidates. We are without a case manager right now, and those did not come through. So they are looking for a case manager that would come in and work with that program. So that's somewhat stalled at this point in time. And a second thing that came up from that was interesting, we funded the tablets, the computer tablets that would be available to officers, so that if they came into a crisis situation, they would be able to do telehealth assessment 24/7. And what the chief said they have found is very few people have wanted to adhere to that. They either want to wait until the next morning, or they just want to go in. And so what we thought, rather than say, well, this doesn't work, let's get rid of it, that we need to do some more education around telehealth and to try and understand what the concerns are and how we can get the community to accept that as a viable model. So we'll be working toward looking at community education we can do. I also met that day with the Albany County Housing and Land Trust, and I'm very happy to announce that, I think I can announce it now, it seems to be all over town. We applied for a grant from Elbogen. We applied for $500,000 over 3 years. Elbogen has granted us $150,000 for the first year, and then they would like to review our progress that we make, since it's kind of an unknown entity, and are willing to look at funding for 2 years after that. So that was a remarkable step to be able to help fund the trust, and we are beginning to look at and focus on networking, messaging, legalities, building the website, job descriptions. So we've got a lot of detail work to do. So we're kind of in there working on it, dividing it up, and trying to bring things forward. But it's moving. And then today, we had the quarterly meeting with President Seidel, the Vice Mayor, Assistant City Manager Fieser, and I met with President Seidel and the community outreach people. And the president talked primarily about the UW budget. We gave a brief report on the SPET and on our priorities for that on town and gown housing. And then we both looked at relationship building and beginning to explore ways that we can better work together and increase communication and collaboration. And that's it for me. Councillor O'Doherty.
My only report is that the mayor and I interviewed 5 wonderful candidates for the Laramie Advisory Commission on Disabilities. We have 5 great candidates for 3 positions, but we talked to some of the candidates, and so we're going to recommend 3 to put on the consent agenda for Tuesday.
Councillor Shumway.
No updates.
Thank you. Councillor Vigil.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for providing that town gown update. I've never blanked that hard in my life, and I'm sitting here like concerned actively about that. I think that it was one of the most positive meetings that we've had this year, and so that was really heartening. And then my only other update is that the Albany County Transportation Authority is actively looking for a date for our next meeting. Looks like that will probably be in December.
Okay. And since I did present it earlier to the president, that's why I was ready. Yeah. Otherwise. So, Councillor Bowling.
None at this time, Mayor. All my meetings are at the beginning of November.
Okay, thank you very much. And last, if we can take a look at the agenda, and as Councillor O'Doherty said, we will be adding to the consent agenda the appointment of 3 people to the Disabilities Commission. So first, are there any comments or concerns about the consent agenda? Councillor O'Doherty.
Not a concern, but I am interested in the water treatment plant replacement project. I think it would be good for the public to hear about what goes into treating our water, and I don't need to have that pulled if nobody else thinks it's a good idea.
What number?
That's 9F. 9, yeah. But this is just the agreement to get some money from anyway. I don't know if it's just the agreement, I guess it doesn't matter. If it's information about the treatment plant, I think that would be cool for the public to hear.
Honorable Mayor, I can check with Director Webb, but the way I understand it is the SCADA is the communication system between the off-site systems and the water treatment. So I don't know, this is the agreement for the replacement of that. I would assume it's a professional services agreement with IT providers to make sure that we've got that constant communication between the treatment center and the outlying centers.
Okay, in that case, I don't want to pull.
You withdraw that. I would like to, a question came up from the Vice Mayor and I regarding 9J, and that was a resolution for setting the fees for the rental housing code. That fee will not change. And since it is not changing, it's remaining the same, we chose not to pull that from the agenda. So seeing no other suggestions, if we can move to the regular agenda. I know. Oh, City Manager, if you can.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to speak to the fees for the rental housing registration and licensing program. The cover sheet as drafted today does present options to the council to keep the fee the same, to adjust it for inflation, or to adjust it by some other amount that you determine appropriate.
You prepared that today?
Correct.
So then we should pull it. So we can talk about it and get your suggestions that you came up with. So let's move 9J to the regular agenda. Thank you, City Manager. Okay.
Honorable.
Yes.
If I could, I Googled up what SCADA means, and it's Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition. It is a system that uses software and hardware to monitor and control industrial processes remotely. So to give you more of an idea that it's about that data communication.
All right. Well, with no further comments or anything, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.